Percentage, fractions and decimals. These three forms are often interchanged, so it's important for you to remember how to convert from one to another. Percentage to a decimal. You just need to divide these values by 100. We know that dividing by 100 means we move the decimal point back 2 places. So 67 has its decimal point here. Moving it back 2 places becomes 0.67. 2.8%. This already has a decimal in it, but it's still a percentage at the moment. So that's what we're trying to get rid of. So 2.8%, moving our decimal point back 2 places, becomes 0.028. 123%. A percentage can be more than 100. 123, the decimal points here, 1, 2, so this would be 1.23. Percentage to a fraction. Here we just write the percentage over 100 and then simplify if possible. So 58% would be 58 over 100. If the question doesn't say it has to be in its simplest form, then you could leave it like that. But generally, we would need to make sure we would simplify. If your calculator is available, you can simply enter the fraction that we have, 58 over 100, and press equals. The calculator will then simplify it for you, so that's 29 over 50. If you don't have a calculator available, you need to make sure you're looking for numbers that divide into both 58 and 100. In this case, we can see they're both even, and so they can both be divisible by 2. 17% would become 17 over 100. Check the calculator to see if we can simplify that. And as you can see, we can't. The main reason is because 17 is a prime number. Fraction to decimal. All we have to do here is divide the numerator by the denominator. So 2/5 would become 2 divided by 5. Now you will note that the mode that I'm in, the calculator just brings it up as 2/5, but the SD button will change it to a decimal. And 7 divided by 11. Here we would round the value. If a question doesn't state rounding, always round to 3 significant figures. So this would become 0.636 to 3 significant figures. Fraction to percentage. We change it to a decimal and then multiply by 100. So 3 divided by 5 multiplied by 100, which gives us 60%. 12 divided by 35 multiplied by 100 gives us, again rounding to 3 significant figures, this would become 34.3. Decimal to a percentage. Since this is the reverse of percentage to decimal, we do the opposite operation. So we would just multiply by 100 and make sure we add the percentage sign. So 0.6 would be, we would multiply by 100, so moving the decimal point 2 places, and this would become 60%. 0.093, move 2 places, would become 9.3%, and 1.42 would become 142%. Decimal to a fraction. These are the trickiest ones. You need to determine which column the final digit of the number is in. When I say the columns, I'm talking about, this is normally our units, that's our decimal point, then we have the tenths, then hundredths, then thousandths, and so on and so forth. So we're looking to see which column the final digit is in. As you can see, 0.84, this final digit here, this 4, is in the hundredth column, which tells me that 100 is going to be by a denominator. You then simply write the digits of the decimal on the top, so this would be 84. Obviously we wouldn't use the 0 because that's unnecessary. As with any fraction and question, we should try and simplify if possible. We can use our calculator to help do this. So this becomes 21 over 25. .053. This 3 is in the 1000th column. So we have 1000 as our denominator here, and we have 53 on the top. Oops. And as you can see, that doesn't simplify. Our final one is 0.6. The 6 is in the tenths column, so this would be over 10. And hopefully you can see very easily that simplifies to be 3 over 5. If your calculator is available to you, then you can enter the decimal value, 0.84, and you press equals. If in the correct mode, it will come up immediately with the appropriate fraction. If it's not, then this button can interchange. It may help to learn a few common percentages, fractions, and decimals and their equivalents in the other formats. I've set up this table with some of the most common options that you may like to learn. So 1/20th as a fraction is obviously 1/20th. Percent would be 5% as a decimal. If you ever have to complete one of these tables, you can choose either the fraction or the percentage to help you change it to the decimal. I find that percentages to decimals is a lot easier. If I know that's 5%, I know my decimal value is going to be 0.05. Similarly, if I have a percentage, I find that percentage to fraction is the easiest way to convert, so it would be 10 over 100, which simplifies to be 1 over 10. The 0.125 and 12.5%, that's obviously more challenging as a decimal, as a fraction, sorry. So let's head to our calculator for this one. I'm going to put the 125 on as the numerator and the 1000 as my denominator, because I can see the 5 is in the 1000ths column. Press equals, and I can see that's 1/8. 0.2 and 20%, so I know that that is 20 over 100, which is 1/5. 25%, I'm hoping that's one that you're all going to recognize as 1/4. 3/10 or 30% would be 0.3. Notice this next one is 1/3, which is not 0.3, it's actually 0.3 recurring. To show the value is recurring, you can either have the line on it as we have here, or it could be with a dot. Either mean that the 3's continue going, which means that when we're changing it to a decimal, it would be 33.3 recurring percent. %37.5% or 0.375. You have a couple of options here. You could note that the 0.375 and the 0.125 are related to each other, but this is something you may not necessarily notice. So let's just go back to 375 on the top and 1000 as my numerator, and you can see it's 3/8. 2/5, 40%. Well, I'm going to go for my percentage, so that would be 0.4. 50%. Hopefully you all know that's 0.5 or 1/2. 60% or 0.6 would be the 60 over 100, which is going to be 3 over 5. 5/8, 0.625, so I'm going to go from my decimal to my percentage, so it's 62.5%. 2/3, 0.6 recurring would be 66.6 recurring percent. 7/10 or 0.7 would be 70%. 3/4 or 75% would be 0.75. 80% would be 80 over 100, which is 4/5. 9 over 10 is 0.9, so that would be 90%. So there is one table of values that you may like to learn, or ensure that you know how to change from one to the other as quickly as possible.